In a quiet neighborhood wrapped in the soft hush of early dawn, a young woman awakened to a secret that would unravel the very fabric of her existence. The tender light of morning filtered through the half-closed blinds, casting delicate shadows on the walls of a modest home believed to be filled with warmth and familiarity. Yet, behind these familiar walls lay a mystery that challenged everything she had ever known. It began in the attic, a place often left untouched, gathering relics of the past that seemed inconsequential, until that fateful day when the hidden corners of her childhood whispered dark truths. The attic was an expanse of memories and forgotten keepsakes, layered with dust and the silent murmur of bygone eras. In that cramped yet storied space, the young woman discovered a series of photographs. At first glance, they appeared to be mere snapshots of family moments. Yet an uneasy feeling began to stir within her. The images, carefully framed yet disturbingly artificial, depicted scenes of joy that felt rehearsed and too perfect. There was something off about these pictures. The smiles were too glossy, the poses too calculated, and the overall mood reeked of contrivance. An unsettling realization emerged. The cherished memories, the laughter, and warmth captured in those photographs were potentially the creations of a well-orchestrated deception. As she pored over each image with trembling hands, the realization began to dawn. The people she had known as Mom and Dad, whose loving faces had been her safe haven, appeared in these staged memories as actors in an elaborate charade. The scenes were meticulously arranged, as though the entire narrative of her childhood was a performance crafted by strangers with sinister motives. The atmosphere in the attic transformed from nostalgic to eerie, indicating that the family she thought she belonged to might have been nothing more than a beautifully constructed illusion. The discovery took the form of a slow-burning horror, a psychological unearthing that nudged her memory and left her with a gnawing doubt about her true origins. As she carefully examined each detail of the photographs, the environment of the attic seemed to echo with silent admonishments. Every corner held a secret, every object a clue that questioned the validity of her past. It was as if the relics themselves were urging her to ask, what is real, and what has been manufactured? With each passing moment, the weight of unanswerable questions pressed down on her, driving a wedge between her constructed reality and the possibility of an authentic self. Beyond the attic, the rest of the home began to reveal its own pieces of the puzzle. The corridors, once filled with the comforting sounds of life and routine, now resonated with a disturbing undertone of deceit. The family photos displayed on the walls, the carefully arranged heirlooms in the living room, and even the everyday household objects all bore the mark of an unsettling orchestration. It was as though the entire home had been a stage set, meticulously designed to house a drama that was never meant to be the truth of her identity. The narrative of her upbringing, a tapestry woven from what she had accepted as genuine, now unraveled before her eyes. Each carefully curated moment, each shared meal, each mundane conversation, came into question. Was every smile, every word spoken, a part of a grand performance meant to conceal a more dangerous reality? As the young woman retraced her steps through memory and the physical spaces of her childhood, she began to see that every comfort offered might have been nothing more than a piece of an intricate ruse. The revelation was both paralyzing and liberating, a painful yet necessary confrontation with the truth. Adding to the enigma was the discovery of a document tucked away in an obscure corner of the attic. The faded paper contained cryptic notes, references to familiar names, and dates that did not match the timeline of her life as she had known it. It spoke of a manipulation of identity, a dangerous game orchestrated by people whose true purpose was shrouded in mystery. This document was the key to a locked door, a door that led to a cascade of questions about her true family and the origins of the carefully constructed persona she had been forced to inhabit. The paper hinted at betrayals, hidden agendas, and a labyrinth of secrets that extended far beyond the confines of the attic. Over time, as the young woman began to piece together these fragments of evidence, she felt the bitter sting of betrayal pulse through her veins. The shock of realizing that her entire life might have been built on lies was compounded by a deep-seated need to discover the truth about her origins. The shock was not merely about the misplaced photos or the fabricated memories. It was about the systematic manipulation that had defined her existence. The sanctuary she had known, the family she had trusted, now loomed as symbols of treachery. Her soul, once unburdened by doubt, was now entangled in a labyrinth of conspiracies, each revelation more harrowing than the last. In the following days, The psychological toll of the discovery became impossible to ignore. Every moment of introspection was marred by a sense of isolation and confusion. The ordinary rituals of life were imbued with an air of suspicion. The comforting banality of daily routines now carried the foreboding possibility of hidden traps. Every object in the home seemed to hide another secret. Every familiar room carried the weight of manufactured memories. The psychological landscape of her life transformed into a minefield where every step had to be taken with the utmost caution. There was a peculiar intensity in the atmosphere, as if the very walls of the home were complicit in the deception that had shadowed her existence. The once inviting corridors now appeared labyrinthine, filled with distortions and illusions that spoke to her deepest fears. In this altered reality, the home itself became a character in the unfolding drama, a silent witness to the disintegration of an identity built on falsity. Every creak of the wooden stairs, every whisper of wind through a cracked window, reinforced the notion that nothing was as it seemed. As the investigation into her past deepened, so did her internal struggle. The more she uncovered, the more she was forced to question her intuition, her recollections, and the authenticity of those around her. The memory of the attic, with its cruel revelations, became the axis on which her reality spun. It was not just about family photos or obscure documents. It was about the betrayal of trust, the violation of the fundamental right to know one's true self, and the manipulation that had defined her very existence. The tension between her longing for the truth and the fear of what lay beneath it was palpable, a constant battle between hope and despair, clarity and confusion. In the quiet solitude of her grief, she found herself revisiting old family gatherings and archived stories narrated by those who were meant to be her guardians. Each memory was scrutinized under the new light of suspicion. The once cherished accounts of her early years now seemed spun from a web of calculated narratives. The moments of tenderness were juxtaposed with the looming shadow of deceit, painting a picture of a highly controlled environment. A fake family born out of a dangerous game that left her feeling disposable and manipulated. The home, occupied by the very people who had nurtured and shaped her identity, now took on a dual nature. On the surface, it appeared to be a cocoon of familial love and security. Beneath that veneer, however, lay an undercurrent of manipulation and control that had meticulously governed each aspect of her development. The revelation in the attic was merely the first crack in what she gradually realized was a meticulously designed facade. The photos, staged with an almost theatrical precision, were pieces of an elaborate puzzle whose final image was yet to be revealed. The deception was not accidental but orchestrated with ruthless precision. Each element of her life had been carefully managed, creating an intricate performance where the roles were assigned by unseen puppeteers. As days turned into restless nights, her journey toward the truth evolved into an introspective quest. The search was not merely about retracing the origins of her birthplace. It was about reclaiming her identity from those who had manipulated every aspect of it. The attic, dark and cold, became symbolic of the hidden truths that had long been buried beneath layers of manufactured affection and expertly crafted memories. Her routine explorations of the home unfolded as investigative forays, each room holding clues that further unraveled the reality she had always trusted. The boundaries between what was real and what was contrived blurred as she delved deeper, until the swirling uncertainty threatened to engulf the remnants of her former self. In this poignant narrative of betrayal and self-discovery, the young woman found herself facing not only the external enemies who had created this illusion but also her internal demons. The idea that her life, her very identity, had been nothing more than a performance left her with an overwhelming sense of vulnerability. Every emotion felt intensified, the warmth of genuine love, the bitter cold of isolation, and the haunting specter of regret. The internal conflict raged like a storm, each memory contested by the dual forces of hope for redemption and despair at the magnitude of the deceit. The journey to reclaim her truth was paved with shattered illusions and the slow reconstruction of a self that had been buried under a pile of counterfeit emotions. Throughout the investigation, subtle clues began to weave themselves into a coherent narrative. In the faded documents, the peculiar arrangement of family heirlooms, and the inconsistencies in recollections told by those around her, there emerged a pattern of deliberate orchestration. It was as though every element in her environment had been meticulously chosen to serve the purpose of maintaining a carefully guarded secret. The realization that the comforting environment of her home was nothing more than a carefully designed set in a dangerous play forced her to question the very nature of trust and love. The seeds of doubt sprouted in every conversation and every gesture, infusing her days with an almost unbearable tension. The burden of the discoveries weighed heavily on her, transforming her life into a labyrinth of emotions and unanswered questions. The admiration she once held for the people who raised her now contorted into a form of wary scrutiny. The gentle smiles of her supposed parents could no longer be taken at face value. They had become symbols of an all-encompassing deceit. In the silent hours of the night, when the echoes of the past resonated most vividly, she questioned if every act of kindness had been a part of a larger, sinister strategy. A script written to keep her oblivious to a truth too dangerous to handle. It was a revelation that challenged her very sense of self, forcing her to re-evaluate every fragment of her history. In the final chapters of her journey, when the evidence pointed inexorably to a truth more alarming than the fabrication of photos, the young woman reached a moment of profound clarity. The revelation was not merely that the people she loved had deceived her, but that the entire construct of her identity had been manipulated from the start. The narrative of her life, carefully curated and staged, was an elaborate performance in which the roles of mother, father, and child had been assigned not by destiny, but by the cold calculations of unseen conspirators. Was her entire existence a mere experiment, a dangerous game played with lives as pawns in a twisted plot? Such questions swirled relentlessly in her mind, leaving her teetering on the precipice of despair. In that raw and unyielding moment of truth, the young woman reached a turning point. The deep sense of betrayal that had initially shattered her spirit gradually transformed into a burning resolve to reclaim her true identity. In the midst of chaos and disillusionment, she found a spark of determination, a defiant promise to unravel the tangled threads of her past and forge a future free from the manufactured illusions of the faked family narrative. The attic, once a dark repository of forgotten memories, now symbolized the gateway to liberation. Its dusty remnants, marked by contrived photographs and carefully hidden documents, were stepping stones toward a new beginning defined by authenticity rather than artifice. The journey ahead promised to be fraught with challenges and hardships. The path toward reclaiming her identity was littered with echoes of the past, each whisper reminding her of the fractures inflicted by deceit. Yet, within that tumultuous sea of uncertainty, she discovered a truth that was as liberating as it was painful. To know oneself, one must confront even the most bitter of realities. The discovery in the attic was not the end, but the inception of a transformative quest. A quest to seek out the genuine remnants of her identity buried under years of manipulation. The experience became a crucible in which her true self would be forged, tempered by fire and strengthened by the resolve to embrace an unvarnished truth. In the grand tapestry of a life that had been meticulously staged, the revelation of a fake family emerged as the catalyst for an epic journey. The carefully constructed narrative, long assumed to be sacrosanct, was now exposed as a clever illusion, a false reality maintained by those who had orchestrated every element of her past. The young woman, armed with the remnants of evidence and the desperate need to uncover her real origins, embarked on a path shrouded in both skepticism and hope. Every step forward was a step away from the comforting lies of yesteryear and toward the uncertain promise of a future built on truth. Thus, the chilling tale of the fake family evolved into a saga of redemption and self-discovery. Haunted by the realization that every cherished memory might have been manipulated and every smile might have concealed ulterior motives, she decided to free herself from the confines of a constructed identity. In her determination to confront the puppeteers who had toyed with her emotions, the journey was not only a pursuit of forensic details and misplaced artifacts but a profound exploration of the human spirit. It was a quest to dismantle the stage upon which her life had been performed and to reclaim the power to write her own story. A story defined by authenticity, raw emotion, and the liberation of a soul that refused to be bound by deceit. In the quiet moments that followed the initial shock, the house that once echoed with laughter now resonated with a solemn promise of transformation. The dim light of the attic, which had unveiled the first hints of duplicity, now shone as a beacon of resilience. Amid the relics of a life that had been anything but genuine, the young woman found the courage to sift through the remains of manipulated memories and to embrace the painful yet transformative path toward self-determination. The vast expanse of the unknown beckoned her to seek out the fragments of her true heritage, far beyond the walls of a house that had served as both a sanctuary and a prison of deceit. And so, beneath the lingering shadows of a meticulously designed illusion, the journey to uncover the truth began. Each relic in the attic, every staged photograph, and every cryptic note formed a mosaic that pointed, however imperfectly, toward her authentic self. The revelation was neither simple nor easily digested. It was a tapestry of sorrow and hope, betrayal and renewal. In forging ahead, the young woman resolved to dismantle the charade piece by piece, to confront the architects of her fabricated past, and to emerge as a being reborn from the ashes of deception. Her story, one of profound loss intertwined with the exhilarating pursuit of truth, would soon resonate as an epic testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a spirit determined to triumph even over the deepest of betrayals. Every step taken in the pursuit of reality carved away at the weight of lies that had burdened her for so long. The quest for authenticity often revealed painful truths, yet it also illuminated the promise of a future unfettered by the constraints of falsehoods. With every new discovery, the shadows that had once obscured her life began to recede, replaced by glimmers of light that hinted at the possibility of redemption and a reclaimed identity. The narrative of the fake family, though steeped in treachery, ultimately became the foundation upon which she resolved to build a future where truth reigned supreme. Thus, the story of the fake family stands as a haunting reminder that behind every seemingly perfect facade may lie a concealed and dangerous reality. In this quiet tale of deception and rediscovery, the young woman's journey reveals the strength inherent in the search for truth. Every grain of dust in the attic, every manipulated photograph, and every carefully concealed secret culminated in the dramatic unraveling of a life built on lies. And in that long, arduous journey, she discovered that even in the midst of betrayal and falsehoods, the courage to seek and embrace the real self can ignite the spark of genuine hope and lead to the ultimate liberation of the soul.